In America, the bowl is neon bright, coated in dyes linked to behavioral problems in children. In Europe, that version is illegal. The company reformulated it years ago, quietly, without telling American parents why. Something changed. It happened through one loophole, one lobbying campaign, and a hidden design buried in food safety law that lets manufacturers decide what counts as safe, and almost nobody noticed it happening. Walk into a grocery store in Germany and pick up a box of Fruit Loops. The colors are muted. The reds come from beet juice, the yellows from turmeric. Walk into a Walmart in Ohio and pick up the same box, same toucan on the front, and the colors come from red 40, yellow 5, yellow 6. Petroleum derivatives, synthetic dyes that the European Union requires warning labels for. The American version has no label, no warning, no disclosure. The formula changed at the border, and you were never told. Before 1958, there was no such thing as self-certified safety. If you wanted to put a chemical in food, you needed the federal government to approve it first. The burden sat with the manufacturer. You proved it was safe, or it stayed out of the supply chain. The list of approved additives was short: flour, salt, vinegar, baking soda, spices your grandmother kept in a cabinet above the stove. These were ingredients with centuries of human use behind them. Everyone already knew what they did to the body, because everyone had been eating them for generations. Food companies operated under a simple constraint. Innovation meant working within limits. You could develop a new product, but you couldn't invent a new chemical and slip it into the formula without federal review. The gate was narrow by design, and for a long time, that design held. By the mid-50s, the food industry had a problem. Post-war manufacturing was accelerating. New preservation methods, new flavor compounds, new ways to make food last longer on shelves and travel farther without spoiling. But the approval process hadn't kept up. Companies sat on applications for years waiting for the FDA to review basic ingredients. Industry lobbyists pushed Congress to act. They argued the bottleneck was hurting innovation, slowing American competitiveness, keeping safe ingredients off the market for no good reason. They pointed to substances everyone agreed were harmless: vinegar, vegetable oil, common spices. Why should these need years of federal review? The system needed a shortcut for the obvious cases. In 1958, Congress passed the Food Additive Amendment. Buried inside it was a single exemption. If a substance was generally recognized as safe by qualified experts, it could skip the federal approval process entirely. The exemption had a name: GRAS, generally recognized as safe. The original intent was narrow. Flour, salt, baking soda, vinegar, ingredients with long histories of human consumption, ingredients that didn't need a chemist to evaluate because your body had been processing them for centuries. Congress never imagined GRAS would apply to synthetic compounds invented in a laboratory. For nearly 4 decades, the FDA still maintained some oversight. Companies were expected to notify the agency when they declared something GRAS. The notification wasn't mandatory, but it was the norm. Then, in 1997, the FDA changed course. The agency announced it would no longer formally approve GRAS determinations. Instead, manufacturers could voluntarily notify the FDA, or they could skip notification entirely. The agency stepped back and let industry run the system alone. The gate that had been narrow by design swung open. By 2024, approximately 10,000 chemicals had entered the American food supply. Many had never been reviewed by the FDA. Many had never even been disclosed to the agency. The law written for your grandmother's pantry had become the legal basis for industrial chemistry. The shift wasn't accidental, it was ideological. The 1997 change reflected a philosophy that had been gaining ground for decades. The market would regulate itself. Companies had financial incentives to keep their products safe. Mandatory pre-market review was inefficient government overreach. Under this framework, the FDA's role changed. The agency moved from gatekeeper to observer. Instead of approving chemicals before they entered food, the FDA now reacted after problems emerged. The burden of proof flipped. Chemicals were assumed safe until proven dangerous, and proving danger required years of independent research the agency didn't have resources to conduct. Thomas Neltner, a chemical engineer who studied the system for the Pew Charitable Trusts, put it plainly, the system is fundamentally broken. Nobody knows what is in our food. The FDA doesn't know. The companies aren't required to tell them. Once the FDA stepped back, the consequences cascaded. Flavor manufacturers alone declared 3,000 ingredients as GRAS without agency review. These compounds vanished behind a single phrase on ingredient labels. Artificial flavors. 2 words covering thousands of chemicals the average consumer would never see named. The packaging industry followed. BPA in can linings, phthalates in plastic wraps, bisphenols in container coatings. Each entered the supply chain through the same legal doorway. Each was linked in subsequent research to hormonal disruption, reproductive problems, metabolic disorders. By the time independent studies caught up, the chemicals were already everywhere. Then came PFAS, per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, forever chemicals. They entered food through packaging, through cookware, through contaminated water, through 20 million acres of farmland, fertilized with municipal sludge that carried the compounds into the soil. Today, PFAS are detectable in the blood of more than 99% of Americans. The contamination is so widespread that finding a control group without exposure has become nearly impossible. Industry groups have spent tens of millions lobbying Congress to block PFAS legislation. The chemicals remain in production. New variants enter the market every year. Stand in the cereal aisle and read a label. You will see phrases designed to reassure. Natural flavors. No artificial preservatives. Made with real fruit. None of these phrases have legally binding definitions that match what you assume they mean. Natural flavors can include compounds extracted through industrial chemical processes. No artificial preservative says nothing about the dozen other synthetic additives in the formula. Made with real fruit can mean a trace amount, less than 2%, overwhelmed by dyes and sweeteners that dominate the actual product. The label is not lying in a way regulators can prosecute. It is telling a kind of truth that functions as misdirection. You see the word natural and your brain fills in the rest. The company knows you will do this. They are counting on it. At least 950 substances permitted in American food are banned or restricted in Europe. Red 40, yellow 5, potassium bromate in bread flour, brominated vegetable oil in citrus drinks. These are not fringe additives. They are in products you recognize, products marketed to children, products your family has been buying for years. The European Union operates under a different principle, the precautionary standard. If a chemical's safety is uncertain, it stays out until proven safe. The American system inverts this. If a chemical's danger is uncertain, it stays in until proven harmful. The result is 2 versions of the same product sold under the same brand, with different formulas separated by an ocean and a regulatory philosophy. We didn't inherit a poisoned food supply. We built one, law by law, exemption by exemption. A shortcut meant for vinegar became the legal architecture for 10,000 chemicals the FDA has never reviewed. The companies aren't hiding this. They don't have to. The system lets them operate in the open, and the burden to prove harm falls on everyone except the people introducing the chemicals. The old labels are still out there. Walk through any grocery store in Munich or Paris, and you will find American brands reformulated to meet stricter standards. Same logo, safer ingredients. The question isn't whether safer food is possible. The question is why we are still waiting to demand it here. If this kind of story interests you, there is a video right here about what happened to the American farm, and why the food your grandparents grew up eating no longer exists.